Mr. Kelly, 4 minutes.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Mr. Perry to continue on that vein on talking about the replenishment of supplies, specifically the artillery shells. We've had quite a bit of testimony at this committee about artillery shell production. We've had an announcement from the government about ordering more. We've had talk of being able to go from 3,000 a month to 5,000. 5,000 shells a month is not as many as it sounds like. It's about less than a week's of firing supply to the Ukrainian forces, and it's not going to get Canada caught up to having the level of stockpile that we need. How do we get, can you tell the committee how to make this happen, to ramp up production to what would be acceptable war footing given the acute need of both the Canadian forces and our ability to support Ukraine?
Thank you. So I think it seems to me like there's been a lack of urgency and focus on this issue. Notwithstanding the technical expertise involved in this, in the scheme of things, artillery shells are not complicated compared to air defense systems and many of the other pieces of equipment that Ukraine needs. They've been around for some period of time. So if we're having difficulty struggling to ramp up production in this, I have serious concerns about our ability to scale up on anything that's more complicated, which would be virtually the entire range of other war-related material. The other piece to this is that we have a standing offer and supply arrangement of long-standing with Canadian companies that produce this material. So not only is it relatively simple in the scheme of things, but we have long-standing commercial relationships, which we should be able to relatively quickly activate, but we have been struggling to do so up until, I guess, about last week with the mentions that you had before committee. So I think the third thing we should look for is we're looking forward. I don't think that there's any likelihood that the demand from Ukraine specifically is going to attenuate for this material. And I think the conflict's shown us quite clearly that Canada needs to have on our own stock significantly more of this, as well as a significantly enhanced ability to ramp up production if this is likely to be the type of conflict we see in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Schatz, did you want to comment as well on shell production and how to untie the knots between procurement and industry to actually ramp up production to meaningful levels that could replenish supply and supply Ukraine in significant numbers that can allow Ukraine to meet objectives?
Briefly, there may be opportunities for cooperation among allied defense industries. It would be worth looking at whether there are bottlenecks of inputs. And I think Mr. Kelly's remark about preparing for the future is very important too. Here at RAND, we joke, that every sentence, every statement about security should end with buy more munitions. They're going to be important. So I would investigate defense industrial base and whether there are any additional legal authorities akin to, for example, the U.S. Defense Production Act that would help do that.
We have Canada's delivered 20,000 rounds, 155 rounds from our own stock, and that's just a matter of a few days' supply. Do you think that, and we've heard though at this committee that industry says we're waiting for orders. Procurement officials have spoken and been frustrated by industry's lack of capacity. Is it merely a matter of will to solve these problems on production? A signal from government of willingness to get production up to where it needs to be?
Very briefly, please. You direct that to Mr. Schatz?
Yes. I'm afraid that would be beyond my knowledge of Canadian industry.
Yes, I think it is a question of will and urgency. It's not rocket science, it's artillery science.